I've been thinking a lot about my growing income tax bill. Right now, my monthly tax payment is about $200. That's equivalent to my entire monthly budget for groceries or my entire monthly budget for dining out. It's starting to hurt, which finally prompted me to look into tax-advantaged accounts. As a Singapore tax resident, there are two primary options available: the mandatory Central Provident Fund, or CPF, and the voluntary Supplementary Retirement Scheme, or SRS. The CPF is a comprehensive social security system. Voluntary top-ups of up to $8,000 annually are tax-deductible. Investment and interest gains accumulate tax-free, and withdrawals are tax-free upon meeting qualifying conditions. Investing with CPF funds is only possible after setting aside certain limits in the special account, or SA. Even then, the investment options are highly restricted. Think bonds, unit trusts, and insurance products. Since I can likely find better returns elsewhere, I'll probably just keep the money in cash to capture the current 4% SA interest rate. So the CPF SA is not a viable investment option for me. The Supplementary Retirement Scheme, or SRS, is a voluntary scheme designed to complement CPF savings and provide personal income tax relief on contributions of up to $15,300 annually. Investment returns accumulate tax-free. Early withdrawals are 100% taxable, but withdrawals made on or after the prevailing statutory retirement age are only 50% taxable, which can result in very little or even no tax if managed properly during retirement. Crucially, the SRS allows for a wider range of investments, including stocks and exchange-traded funds listed on the Singapore Exchange and approved robo-advisors, some of which offer exposure to overseas markets. Since I mainly invest in individual stocks listed in the US exchanges, particularly the Magnificent Seven tech stocks, the most viable SRS option for me now, with the lowest recurring fees and closest association with the Mag 7, is the SPDR S&P 500 ETF, or the Amundi Prime USA Fund, which tracks an index with high correlation with the S&P 500. However, investing in the Mag 7 has historically brought higher returns than investing in funds that track the index. Which leads me to my core question: is the tax saving worth the lower investment returns? Singapore has a progressive income tax system, and I fall into the fourth tax bracket. For my latest assessment year, my tax was $2,560. I've laid out two scenarios to find my answer to the question of whether the tax saving is worth the lower investment returns. Scenario 1, Max SRS. This involves maxing out my $15,300 SRS contribution. I invest this amount in the S27, which tracks the S&P 500. This scenario saves me $1,071 in taxes, which I can invest into the Mag 7 in equal allocation through my own brokerage. Scenario 2, no SRS. This involves paying my taxes in full. Compared to Scenario 1, I pay an additional $1,071 in taxes. Deducting this from $15,300, it leaves me with $14,229 to invest directly into the Mag 7 stocks in equal allocation through my own brokerage. Overall, I have more money to invest in the first scenario. Let's compare them using historical returns over the past 1 and 5 years. Over a 1-year time frame, the difference is negligible in the short term, but Scenario 2 is still slightly ahead. Over a longer 5-year time frame, the difference becomes massive. Scenario 2 outperforms Scenario 1 by over $22,000. The dramatically higher historical returns of the Mag 7 easily compensate for the tax paid upfront. Of course, past performance is no guarantee of future returns, and the Mag 7 will be more volatile with deeper drawdowns. But I believe in the long-term growth and economic modes of these businesses. I'm willing to live with the volatility and pay the close attention required to manage individual stocks because the potential return is far greater. So based on my current risk tolerance and specific situation, I would rather pay my income tax in full now and invest freely than use tax-advantaged accounts. The next logical question is, when would it make sense to use these tax-advantaged accounts? At what income threshold or tax bracket does the tax saving become large enough to justify the restricted investment options? I asked Gemini to crunch those numbers based on the immediate past 1 and 5 year data for both scenarios, and here's what it found. For the 1 year horizon, Scenario 1 wins at the 11.5% tax bracket and above, as the tax savings are significant enough to overcome the difference in the returns. However, in the longer 5-year horizon, Scenario 2 wins at all tax brackets, as the tax savings are not enough to compensate for the opportunity cost of not investing the principal in the higher return Max 7 tax stocks outside of the SRS. So, would I ever use the SRS? Maybe. When I reach financial freedom and still choose to be formally employed, I'll leverage the SRS to reduce my taxes then. So that's where I land for now. I'm avoiding tax-advantaged accounts to keep the freedom to invest in the Max 7. Let me know in the comments if your situation is different. And if you want to follow the rest of my financial freedom journey, you can check out this playlist right here.